Hello, you guys. It's me again, MetaVerse Explorer. I'm back again, trying to keep you updated on what's happening in Star Atlas. This time, I have an interview with Tim McBurney. I don't know if you know, but he's going to be creating a little Star Atlas comic series for us. It's super exciting. I want to find out more about him. So, Tim, thank you very much for joining us. How are you, mate?
I'm pretty good. Yeah. How you doing?
I'm
Yeah,
doing
this is
pretty good.
exciting.
It's a bit cold in Sydney here this morning, so as soon as we finish this, I'm gonna get a jacket. I'm gonna get a coffee or something and just warm right up. So Tim,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, once again, thank you very much for joining us. I notice you are a content creator yourself. You have your own a YouTube channel, the Drawing Codex,
I
Ancient
do.
Drawing Wisdom, and you've gotten a lot of likes and subscribes so far. So what's the story of that at the moment?
Yeah. Well, I think yeah, I mean, I feel like I wanted to be on YouTube. I was thinking about being a long time ago.
Yeah,
Um Before it was cool. Back when it was like 720p and the video wasn't that good.
yeah.
But yeah, I kind of never did it. But I've been teaching drawing for quite a
Yeah,
while, probably for about sort of 10 years as a professional drawing teacher, teaching people entertainment design, basically sort of what I do.
yep. Might as
And
well bring
I
it onto
think,
YouTube, right?
yeah. Well, I think it's just, yeah, that's sort of something I always wanted to do. And I kind of got around to it, right? It's often the case, like I should do this or this would be exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I like the idea of the YouTube model, you know what I mean? Just being able to kind of
Do
try and
your own
entertain
content.
people and educate at the same time,
Yeah.
and try and talk to a lot of different people. So for me personally, I'm not really one media, but I do like creating stuff. You know what I mean? And yeah, I kind of know a lot about drawing and how to
Yeah,
teach people
I
drawing.
I've
So
seen some
yeah,
of your videos, man. They're really in depth. Like as a drawing, as someone who would draw, and I don't at all. I have no
right,
idea. Your videos look very in depth and like very helpful. And going back 8 years, which is crazy. But
yeah,
forgive me, I totally didn't ask about you yourself. Thank you again for coming on. But maybe we should start
yeah.
properly, right? Can you give us an introduction to yourself? Who are you?
Yeah. Well, I think like I mean, talking about my career, the
Yeah,
YouTube stuff is quite linked to that, right? Because, again, I started doing that. Like I had a YouTube channel for ages, but I've only started in the last 6 months actually being like, okay, I'm going to try this thing. And sort of, I mean, I'm
strong.
not a YouTuber because I'm full-time employed doing a whole bunch of stuff and I'm very busy, but I'm sort of putting as much effort into that as I can. But yeah, I mean, I'm from Adelaide, Australia, sort of born and bred, sort of Adelaide guy.
Yeah,
And,
Sydney.
yeah, in Sydney. Yeah. So I'm like an 80s kid, I guess. So I grew up on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Nice,
BMX bikes,
nice. Hot
Nintendo,
Wheels.
but like, yeah, the NES sort of version. Yeah, so I'm like right on that cusp where I had sort of half an analog childhood, half a digital childhood.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm like one of the very few, I guess, thought that being an artist or designing video games or doing comics or something like that would be a fun career. Whereas back then that was pretty crazy talk. So yeah, but because I was in Adelaide,
Yep.
and I'm sure as a for the national audience who don't know the socio-economic politics of Australia,
Yeah.
um, Adelaide is basically like a nowhere town you'd find in the middle of America that people on the
On the
we're all on the
outside.
coast in Australia,
Yeah.
but people in Melbourne and Sydney look down on Adelaide as a place where nothing happens, which is mostly true,
Also
right?
Perth.
Yeah, also, oh yeah, that's right. I remember perfectly. So yeah, there wasn't any opportunity to learn to do what I wanted to do, and I kind of had to teach myself essentially. I,
Yep.
I, I did some sort of university, or it would be a TAFE, which I guess is like the equivalent of community college
That's right. Yeah.
for other people, sort of parts of the world. So again, like his university and college, and his Adelaide, and then his doing TAFE in Adelaide. It's just kind of yeah. So it was very challenging to do what I was trying to do just because of geography. You know what I mean? There wasn't a lot of people what I wanted to do in Adelaide. And I just know that there's a whole pile of people in the world where that's the same. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I think it has gotten better for a lot of places in the world. If you're in California or something, great art education everywhere. But yeah, not everywhere. So I just like that idea of kind of, doing that thing where you kind of share that sort of knowledge and keep doing that. Yeah. So again, I wanted to do video games and comics. I sort of grew up reading that
In
stuff
that
as most
period.
people. Yeah, I mean now it's quite common for everyone to play video games and stuff, but it was sort of less common then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just sort of I got my first job in 2002 at a local Adelaide video game studio,
Nice.
and I think that sort of folded shortly after because again I think most video gaming in sort of Australia sort of folded around those kind of like mid noughties.
Mm.
Yeah, so then I just sort of went freelance. I went on like a very sort of cosmic journey of different jobs and different sort of freelance
You
things.
got to
But
find
yeah,
yourself.
I mean, yeah, that's right. But I mean, basically, I just always wanted to draw comics, design video games, and mostly stories, right? So a lot
Yep.
of my base comes from trying to tell stories visually, basically. So that's sort of who I am. It's like artist, but I wanted to be a writer. Like when I was young, I sort of read a lot of fantasy books.
Yep.
I wanted to, I like the art on the fantasy book, the cover, and I was like, I want to do that thing, right?
Cool.
So yeah, that's like a little bit of sort of where I sort of came from, I guess. But yeah, I've done a whole bunch of things because I've been doing this for a long time. But
Yeah.
I never had a real job.
I,
That's probably something. I never
I
had a real job. I don't know how to use a cash register. I don't know anything about do customer service. I don't know hospitality. So I managed to sort of do it. But yeah, there's certainly like a journey of different things,
yeah.
including drawing French comics. I wrote sort of French comics, and I sort of started doing more concept art for video games, right? Sort of yeah, probably in the last sort of years. That's mostly what I
Mm.
was doing. But yeah, so again,
That
lots of things. I could talk for ages about
that's all
different
right.
things I've sort of done,
That's
but
all
that's a
good.
general idea.
That's good. That's good. Thank you very much for like the introduction and like the journey you took to try and find yourself. I think, as you said, like a lot of people don't have real jobs nowadays. It's like trying to make their own content, make their own brand, and trying to just
Yeah,
just survive really. But I
yeah,
guess
yeah,
we'll direct it now towards like the main content that we're really excited for in this interview is kind of your experience first with Web3, and then we'll go on to Star Atlas, right? So, are you familiar with NFTs? Are you interested in them at all?
yeah.
Is it a avenue for you to connect with your audiences a bit more?
Well, I mean, NFTs are quite a controversial topic in the artistic community.
Yeah,
So it's like I'm really interested in Web3 ethos, right? And the concepts behind
you
what
own your content.
blockchain technology unlocks for the world. And I'm kind of pretty bullish on that.
Yep.
It's obviously just full of scams, a whole bunch of sort of nonsense as well. So it's sort of ironic that like what we want Web3 to be is something where there's less scams,
Yeah,
there's less stuff. And I
I
feel
know.
like the promise for that is very obvious, right? Is like once you have the transparency that I think that might enable, I think there's lots of good opportunities. And as someone who has for a long time, I'm an old digital artist. I mean, that's another thing probably sort of that's interesting about my journey is I started like literally just at the cusp when I was kind of going from you're sketching in a sketchbook, right, as a
Yeah.
kid, which is something like a lot of people do. Like
Yep.
heaps of people sketch in a sketchbook and you read Naruto or some manga that you're
One
into, or
Piece.
you're into, yeah, One Piece, you're into something and you're like copying, and then it's kind of like most people stop, right? And and I think it's often that you kind of try and figure out how to make that art, and it's quite challenging to kind of go from just drawing in your sketchbook in math class, right, to kind of how do I
Actually
do the
translate.
color, how do you make a finished illustration? So I just started where digital was possible, right? So I started using a Wacom tablet, sort of 1997. You know what I
Damn.
mean? Like sort of quite early. And so I'm a fully digital artist, right? But I mean, I have drawn some of the books I drew traditionally, but my color sense, it's all Photoshop, right? sit in front of me, you can see behind me there's
Yeah, we can see all the stuff you got.
it's just computers, right? And there's a computer in front of me, obviously. So I'm like, I'm in a digital world, and I've always been in the digital world. And I think it's been very frustrating to not be able to sell some type of physical product, right? Just from a pure mechanic standpoint, right? And so I think the concept of NFTs is interesting in that sense, but yeah, I haven't sort of pushed that far into it because at the moment, again, I think you look at the concept of NFTs, Web3,
Yeah.
right, as like a philosophical, sort of ethical, technological construct. And then there's kind of like what's happening in
Now.
NFTs now. And that seems very, very much like sort of fine art, where people are selling
Like one pieces. Yeah.
yeah, creating experiences for people with a lot of money. You know what I mean? So, and I know a lot about the history of art and how have like modern art and the concept of um, your sort of virtuous or heroic modern artists like your Picasso or your Warhol, and how they kind of attack that idea space to kind of create value right from nothing, right? And kind of shift things, right? So to me, I see that as just it's a fractal of sort of modern art. A lot of what's happening today as like sort of NFTs.
In NFTs.
Yeah,
That's where it's at now, and we haven't gotten to the the philosophical part that we want it to be, like the whole ethos and the creator economy and everything. It's not there yet.
No, it's not right there. And I think, I mean, so much of that written, and I'm sort of into ideas, right? So it's very interesting to me, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But personally, I have very little interest in the kind of the Picasso Warhol model, right, of business, which is how I would describe it, right? And a lot of people are like, oh, it's kind of art. And I'm like, it's not art, that's business, right? Those people cutthroat businessmen, right? And they do a song and dance, very good at it. But at core, that is a business model. It's just not something. But that's how I would describe it. I don't know. I mean, that's very meta way of saying.
That's good.
That question. We can go deeper if you want, but yeah, I mean, I sort of agree with a lot of the criticism that have been labeled it. The Web3 and the NFTs industry. I'm like, yeah, that's totally tracks. But at the same time, I'm like,
there's possibilities.
But you're not seeing the possibility, do you know what I mean, for creator empowerment, right? Which I guess is probably the sort of thing you're resonating on as well.
Yeah,
that idea that you're sort of talking about. And at the moment, it feels very much like people are not speaking the same language. You know what I mean? When we're sort of talking about these things. So, yeah, I'm in a weird position because I'm sort of not that interested in happening with sort of modern art sales of NFT. But I'm working for a Web3 company.
Yeah.
So I kind of get, for me, I'm like, well, I get the best of both worlds because I get to kind of not really care too much about it.
Yeah.
But
you still get involved. Yeah.
And you have lots of people to talk to, understand it much more in depth than me. So it kind of allows me to be a dummy, which is kind of what I'd like to be, because ultimately I kind of just, believe that, if we kind of make things right and try and build audience, try and make good comics, make good YouTube videos, like that's kind of where the focus should be for the creator. That's certainly mine. And I think the closer we can get to that, the better, right? So that's kind of how I view that. That's probably a long way of not answering the question.
No, it's okay. I love it. You've got such bright ideas, and you've got like different perspectives on how things are and how they should be, and like we're just not there yet. But maybe we can relate this back to Star Atlas, right? So you
Sure.
say you're on the periphery. You're interested in NFTs. Can you tell us about the big topic of the day, which is the Star Atlas novel that you might be creating for us? So first off, who approached who? I've got some quick fire questions.
Yeah, who approached who? Well, I think that I think basically I was working on Star Atlas for like since the very beginning. And yeah, I just I think like Danny Floyd,
Yep.
who's the sort of product officer for Star Atlas. He just said, "You want to do this comic, right?" And I was like, "Yep." And that's kind of what happened.
Easy. Done.
It was easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess the details of how that develops and how like how we actually get to
A finished product published, yeah.
Is certainly like another sort of journey.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was basically it. Is I'd been designing the two for Feist.
Yes.
In sort of, you know, as sort of part of, you know, various sort of jobs that I was doing at that time, and again working with Automator. You know, probably before it was called Automator, right?
Yeah. They were a previous company
just,
before, yeah, Automata.
Yeah, yeah, and I was actually working with some people again who were sort of on there before that, for a year before that. So when I first came on the product, it was just a space game. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was any. I didn't really know
a MetaVerse. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was just like, oh, this seems cool, you know, and I think that's often the way that, which is interesting because again, you know, that's often what happens as a freelancer. You kind of don't actually get to know a lot about the project. But working on this is a bit different, right? Because now I'm sort of heavily involved with the overall sort of lore and the storytelling side of it. But yeah, I just kind of meandered my way into it. And yeah, it's kind of actually quite a perfect job for me because I do all these things. And yeah, because I drew comics for probably 10 years and I drew sort of French European style of comic.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, probably closer to what people would define as a graphic novel, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like less kind of superhero, right? It's not like a superhero comic, it's just a comic.
I think in the Star Atlas community, we see it more as a graphic novel rather than a DC Comics, Marvel superhero, kapow kind of thing. We see it more as artistic feel to it. But I've got heaps more questions that I want to probe you. And like you've opened up to like 5 questions, but the first thing I want to ask is that, so you're responsible for the two for Feist. Were you responsible for the entire two for line, or are you going to be doing the two for Spirit? Is someone else doing that at the moment?
Yeah, well, I think the two for Spirit is like was a collaboration. So
the big ship.
The two, it's like a big ship. I mean that one is something, again, for me, I'm like, I don't know whether that's announced. I don't know whether you can buy it yet. This is where I'm like, so I think I did some sketches of that basically. And I think at that point, I was starting to move on to graphic novel. And there's another really, really talented artist, concept artist called Mark Lee, who sort of took that forward and did the sort of 3D pass on the concept fave.
Yeah, we've seen the 3D of it so far. Yeah, we've seen it.
Yeah, yeah. Which so that was kind of based off a 2-dimensional sketch that I sort of did, which is funny because it's like now that's kind of the like pencil sketch version of how concept art works. So I'm doing it on a tablet screen.
Yeah,
color.
But then you have to first start on the paper.
Yeah, yeah. But well, no, it's all digital. But compared to process that people go through just for a concept phase on ships, it's quite old school, you know. So he's obviously done a full 3D concept of that, and it looks really, really cool.
Yeah.
I was super, super impressed with how he sort of took those basic ideas, and he made like a really, really cool thing. Like it ended up a lot better than the original sort of sketch that I did. So that was a collaboration, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of these things are collaboration. It's a mix of ideas, and there's obviously art directors, and you know, Automator has quite a flat hierarchy structure. So there's a lot of opportunity to have people, you know, share ideas,
different pools,
different things
spread across all the place.
Yeah, exactly. Which again, I think goes back to some of that Web3 sort of ownership of what you're doing, sort of ethos, right? Which is actually happening, which is super exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I designed, answer to your question. I did the two for Feist.
Yes.
And actually, I did the 3D on that and the sort of illustrations. Some other people again collaborated on some of the other illustrations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that. The comic itself. Oh, sorry, we're gonna change very soon. The comic itself, you're going to be doing. Is there any information released about the comic? What's your inspiration for it so far, and how are you going to tackle it? Is it going to be single stories? Is it going to follow a storyline?
So that's where it's like, I don't think there's a lot of public information sort of currently, but I think the basic idea that's fairly sort of, easy to share is that it will be sort of episodic content, right? So
Yep.
self-contained episodes that will be released on a regular basis. And I think the general idea is currently what we're trying to do is kind of create like a graphic novel book that could be made out of those episodes. That will kind of eventually be something that you can kind of collect and actually sort of call a graphic novel. But yeah, I think a big part of the idea is just that, or at least this is how I view it, is that when you're making a game, you take a long time to get to the point where people talk to each other in the game.
Yeah.
Right? That's almost like the last thing that happens.
Yeah, the chat function.
Everything's rigged. All the characters are there. Dialogue systems are working.
Yeah.
And you can kind of have it happen. But with a comic, we can kind of make that happen. On day one, and I think it allows us to sort of share with the community a lot of the ideas that are part of the lore and sort of the story, and sort of fill that gap, I guess, with sort of sharing that stuff with people, because I think that can be one of the frustrating things that you find when people are building a game is you kind of have, like, with video games, it's sort of the last 15-10% of polish takes a huge amount of time.
Yeah, and that's the golden period there. That's what really sells the product and sells the game. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's not really finished until you get to that stage, and that stage takes a long time, but often there's a lot of material that exists before that, right? So this is just for me, it's a really cool way to kind of, again, tell that story. And I think it's was mentioned, that I think it is essentially the prequel. So it deals with the prequel story and the prequel ideas.
Yep.
That you probably would see original Rebirth posters.
So, very awesome. That's what I was going to ask about.
That's what you're going to...
Yeah.
Yeah. So you keep asking questions, because otherwise I'll keep talking.
Yeah.
and share too many
too much information. All right, so let me just directly ask that first. So is it going to be following a central lore? It's going to be following the Rebirth posters by themselves, or you're planning to make it like on the periphery, totally separate, but within the Rebirth poster periods?
Yeah. So I mean, I think a lot of that's probably to be determined.
In
terms of like the sort of story point, but I mean, one of the things that I think would be really cool to do that we certainly would be trying to do is sort of piece together a lot of lore pillars that exist.
Yep.
And
see where we can derive a story from it.
Yeah, embellish on those. But the plan is also that it will be a story about characters that there will be main characters and like a
races,
story there.
love, romance, revenge, exactly. Maybe the assassin of Pizol from poster 5 or something like that.
Yep. That's in my brain. So there's a lot of those things. And so it's basically just it's also a way to kind of think through some of the ideas as well, and kind of see where they kind of lead us and what we can kind of draw out, because that is certainly some challenge when you're building a metaverse, literally, right?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I guess there's a whole lot of work to go into it, right? Whereabouts in the creative process are you at the moment? You're still formulating, you're collecting your sources? Is that the stage you're at the moment, or have you started putting anything pen to paper? How long would it take you to put anything to paper in your process?
Yeah. No, there's stuff. Pen has been put to paper.
Or digitally.
Digitally.
Yeah.
Like Wacom.
Yeah.
The Kiwi on pen, but no. So it's again, the creative process for something like this is
long. I'm not a creator, but I understand it's super long.
Well, it's a complicated problem to solve and a challenge to solve, right? Which again is kind of the sort of thing my brain's quite good at. So I kind of quite like that idea. But yeah, we've been working on it for a while. So we sort of got to a point where we're developing like a lot of those sort of ideas. But one of the things that again I sort of interesting about again the Star Atlas community and the concept of Web3 is sort of putting stuff out there and seeing what people respond to a certain degree. So that's kind of why I like the idea of doing it as an episodic sort of endeavor, is that we can kind of see like what people think and what people sort of comment on, which is very, very similar to how normal comics are written, right? Western sort of superhero comics, they're all episodic, they all come out every month, and it's this sort of, it's a weird process of building a story
based on reactions and how the sentiment is, and they want a specific character that's super popular, then they go into their backstory.
Well, there's an energy to it, right, that I think again people found in those early episodic sort of forms of story, right? It's very similar to that like the pulp era storytelling, or where it's sort of ironic sometimes that like they had a lot of those things there back in the day, where there was a lag of probably 3 months or something that someone would be writing Spider-Man. I mean, that's how Spider-Man happened. They basically had a million Spider-Man stories that were awful, right? That they produced in Amazing Fantasy, and they're all garbage except for Spider-Man. Everyone was like,
"Oh, that's the one,"
and that's how that was born, right? So I think there's something that again is like good about that, and funny that again I feel like that isn't sort of utilized as much as it could be, given the speed of things today. How you don't have any lag, not a 3-month lag.
Everything works a bit faster now.
But certainly my brain is full of Star Atlas story and the Star Atlas lore and a whole pile of stuff, and that's basically a big part of what I do day in, day out, is kind of processing those things and reading sort of stories and figuring out how to go. But it's there's a lot of stuff that's been done so far.
And there's still lots to do.
Still a lot to do. Because again, it's a matter of sort of trying to match the ethos of the lore that sort of exists and sort of build additional things. And there's a lot of other people sort of working on those things for the actual game as well. So
just a quick question: will you be collaborating with any other Star Atlas creators at the moment to create this, or this is going to be your own solo project?
So the Star Atlas basically has a writing team. Again, I don't think that's also like sort of information I can't share. There's like a creative writing team.
We're aware.
Is involved in sort of various writing, right? Sort of lots of story and lore stuff that goes out, and so they are involved with that sort of a lot of the overall story ideas. And again, the creative process is quite sort of fluid in that instance, right? So who comes up with what idea and who owns what? I think that's more where there's a heavy sense of collaboration, and sort of getting ideas from different people and throwing out a bunch of ideas, et cetera, again trying to get closer to what the story is about and what the overall sort of Star Atlas lore and what it's really about. But there's a point at which kind of figure out what those stories are, and then I take over and make a comic out of it, I guess. And sort of write/draw how everything goes together. Most of the characters would be things that I'm designing, but again, it could be a character that someone else
has come up with, and it resonates well enough, and then go with it.
So I'd say there's a lot of moving parts at the moment, but probably pretty soon we'll get into a sort of flow of production with it. Nice. But it's again, it's super exciting, very strong team. Again, there's lots and lots of sort of really, really talented writers who are sort of working on this and coming up with ideas and figuring it all out.
Now, Tim, I just wanted to ask you about further in about the comic itself. Let's talk about the races in the comics. You're familiar with the three races, right? The Tufa, the Uster, and the Mud. How prominently are you going to be focusing on these races? Have you had experience drawing them? Have you looked at them so far?
Yeah, yeah. So I think the first sort of major story
Yeah.
that I think we're going to try and tackle
Ooh, Alpha.
focuses a little bit more on the sort of the booster
Nice.
and the sort of human characters, the mud characters. So
Yeah.
part of the idea is, again, obviously there's a lot of sort of different races,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
in there, and within Oni there's like a lot of sort of races as well.
That's right.
And again, my goal by the end, right, if there's like an end of graphic novel, be it, however long it sort of takes, is that we will sort of touch on those and sort of talk about and give people an idea what those races are about, so that again that can help them to sort of define maybe their role sort of in the
Yeah.
game, or
Or
just
feel a
get
relevance to them,
yeah,
engage
yeah,
with
that's
the
right,
race itself.
absolutely. So that's a big sort of goal, I think, of the comic as well, is to sort of touch on all those things. um So again, my goal is to kind of show all those, so that there'll definitely be, even probably within the first few episodes, there'll definitely be every race that you can kind of see
You'll need to
in
introduce first,
exists in
yeah.
Star
Introduce,
Atlas
and then you go into
will
your different paths.
will at least be mentioned or seen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's probably some races like the Fatoli, who
Yeah.
maybe yeah, aren't just kind of walking around quite as much, because they're maybe sort of more
They're very
very
rare. They're very like
yeah,
nearly godly or omnipotent, so they should be like
yeah,
used very sparingly.
that's right. So but yeah, the goal is to kind of show that, and sort of be like, well, what will the game feel like when you're running around in it, right? There'll obviously be all these kind of races there, and you'll be able to go to space stations and have all this kind of rich world where
Yeah.
everything's sort of animated and looked really cool. And so yeah, part of what interests me about this is kind of drawing those things. So yeah, I've certainly been drawing all of the characters and figuring out how also to sort of fit them into the style that I draw in.
Yeah.
if you've
Yeah.
seen the if you've seen the style of the comic, it's quite simplistic, right? It has pretty much a clean line style. It's a little bit more sort of similar to the styles you'd see in sort of France or European comics. And yeah, my goal is to simplify things a little. So it's not going to be one to one, like drawing every little facial sort of facet of like the Uster, right?
No. Yeah. That'll take a
My
while.
goal is,
They're robots.
yeah, is to simplify it, sort of figure out how to kind of tell it in this sort of graphic novel comic book style.
Mm.
So yeah, that's a big part of also what I've sort of been working on. So yeah, it'll definitely involve all of the races, and some point we need to go pretty deep with all of them and kind of really figure out what they're about. For the first, I think again, primary focus is more going to be just a sphere, right?
Cool.
Not necessarily from a visual standpoint, but just from a philosophical standpoint.
Oh,
Let's say,
nice.
and I'll sort of leave it. At
Yeah,
that.
yeah, sure, no problem. I know, like, creative process will change probably from now until then. So, yeah, that's good info. Yeah. Is there a timeline at the moment for the comic itself? And I've got another question about the comic, but we're looking like a year-long thing, right? It'll be maybe 2 years at least at a minimum.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's like all of that stuff is sort of to be determined.
To be determined.
And yeah, and it's not something where I can specifically give any sort of dates. But yeah, I mean, my goal is to kind of have it all sort of happening pretty quickly, and then again, it's the kind of thing you just chip away at, right? It's when you're working on large productions, again, it just takes a long time, but that's kind of the nature of
That's
the
the
beast.
process.
So yeah, the idea is the episodic nature of it will allow us to kind of share that process with everyone in the community. Yeah,
Yeah.
share that with you. So yeah, the specifics of like the exact release schedule and cadence,
Yeah.
I think are all sort of to be determined.
To be determined.
Yeah, I mean, if it was up to me, I'd be like, let's look at it now. Let's sort of talk about it,
Let's
right?
do it now.
Yeah.
I've got a follow-up question for that, like just to help you along. And I know you probably don't need any help from us, but like the Star Atlas community, there's a whole bunch of us, right? There's like, I think 150,000 people on Discord, you know, very active community member base. Is there anything we can do at all for you? Like we can find you on Twitter, tell you what we'd like, you know, send you a picture of something at all. What is there anything we can do to help you at all?
Yeah, well, I think I am on Twitter. I don't. Yeah, I'm a Twitter newbie. I don't really know how to use Twitter.
Soon.
So yeah. So I mean, I guess what I'm interested in is just like, yeah, when the first episode rolls out,
Yep.
you know, just getting people's feedback. You know,
Yeah.
what did you like? What did you not like? You know, good or bad or ugly. I don't mind. I'm totally fine. So yeah, I mean, I think it's like, yeah, anything where, like, you know, if people are seeing something, sort of thinking about something related to the universe, you know, and kind of share it or whatever, that's, I think that's always sort of super interesting to hear, because yeah, you never know where there's like, again, a little idea or something like that will kind of make it in. And that stuff can be fun. So but mostly it's just
Just
you know, when it
feedback
comes
and
out, check
sharing
it
it.
out.
Yeah, check it out. Well, like I do Star Atlas videos very often, like maybe twice a week or give or take. And there's so many other smaller communities in Star Atlas as well. Like we've got all the major DACs. They're all going to be focusing very heavily on the first kind of episode when it comes out. And I guarantee you, people are going to be coming back to you, chatting to you on Twitter, say, "Hey, this is a great comic!" Like really positive. I'm sure that's what's going to happen because everyone is so excited to actually see this comic. Like no doubt.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, as from a personal standpoint, I try and isolate myself as much as possible, which is not to say I don't sort of like those things, but yeah. So if you're sort of like, who is this guy and where is he hiding? It's just because that's who I am,
Yeah.
right? I tend to be kind of like, you know, again, I'm a creator in my little creator cave,
Yep.
and that's what I do. You know, I'm a sort of dyed in the wool sort of introvert, right? So and I've sort of, from a productivity standpoint, I've sort of tried to
That's what
not
works.
engage in too much disparate sort of social media, because what you guys want is draw the comic so it comes out on time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
focus on that. But I again, that's the kind of thing where, yeah, you know, I'm totally unaware of that. I'm just sort of working on this thing, and you know, I'm sort of thinking about, you know, how to make this sort of comic, and again, getting like immersing myself in the world and the lore, you know, because a lot of it sort of exists there.
Yeah. You
So
got to
that's sort
find
of
the
what I'm
diamonds
about,
and
right?
polish it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But again, like there's, I think that's where, again, that idea of collaboration is really useful. Where, you know, if people do have ideas, like hit me up. Again, I might not reply. It's not because I don't want to reply. It's just because I'm sort of, you know, probably busy drawing the comic, or just in general, I'm kind of, you know, sort of hiding away. But yeah, that's super exciting to hear people are thinking about the comic or know that there's a comic, because yeah, from my perspective, I'm like, I don't even know. I'm like, maybe 5 people will read it and then
Ah,
just quit it.
no. No, man.
That's all I know.
There's
So
going to be thousands of people reading it.
right,
We
yeah,
get thousands of people. Like the last town hall had like 400, 500 people just
yeah,
chilling there, waiting to hear information. I
yeah, for
guarantee you,
sure.
if you're watching this video right now on YouTube at a later date, I want you to find Tim on ArtStation. I've got his links down below. You can go to his
Yeah,
even his website and look at his ArtStation and look at the work he's made. And you make a suggestion to him. He won't reply. He maybe not reply, but make a suggestion to
I read
see.
it.
Yeah, he'll read it to see what how we can help him. It's really good, man. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, that would be good, because again, I think also, like, there's, you know, there's two worlds, right? It's almost like, you know, not to get cliche, but there is like there's the metaverse that exists within the company, and there's the one that exists
That's
without the company, right? And the closer you can get them, and the more productive interaction you can have, right?
mm,
The belief or the dream of Web3, right, is that that makes it better, right? That does, you know, empower everyone and kind of make for a better experience. So yeah, I mean, I feel like the how that happens is always messy, right? It's not. I think maybe that's part of that thing where people are like, oh, and that this is not working magically in a really easy way, and it's like, well, that is challenging, but it's also fun, and it is also hopefully going to make everyone feel like, interesting things happen. So yeah, like it's interesting. The reason I sort of say that is it's interesting to me to see like what other people think of things that are being
That
made.
have been
It's
created.
very sort of interesting. Yeah, yeah. So definitely, if people have thoughts or, hey, this sucked, or this thing isn't how I thought, Houston would be, or this isn't how I thought, what about this character, or what about this thing that was sort of, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
like
That's
we like
super interesting for me.
I can just imagine someone saying we need a Tigu in, which is the little cat creature. We need it in
We
like
do.
the first episode, the first episode or something like that. I'm sure a lot of
Yeah,
people
yeah.
will do it, and even people at
I can
Aephian.
do spoiler alert. There's no Tigu in the first episode,
Ah,
unfortunately. But now that you mention that, I'm
oh,
like, yeah, we do need to increase the number of pets and things like that. Um, yeah. So I
yeah,
think the image that was shared initially, the only thing that I think that's
yeah.
positive is
One image.
basically done, yeah, to kind of say, hey, if it looked like this, you know what I mean? Would
Yeah,
this be cool?
yeah.
But yeah, that's not 100% representative of characters that will be in the finished comic or
Of
whatever.
course.
But again, I think they all looked cool, and that would be good. And yeah, I think the more Tigus, the better. That's that could
Yeah,
be. Yeah, that
everyone's
might be an
familiar.
episode.
Everyone's familiar
Yeah,
with the first image that was shared, and the general consensus was that
yeah,
the art style was very good. You know, the characters looked very compelling and engaging. So, like for me as well, I'm a big fan of, like, I don't know what the actual word is. You know, the Japanese fine line art, with the samurai and all the like giant landscapes and very fine pencil marks. That's what it
yeah, yeah,
reminds me of. And for
yeah,
me, I was like, oh yes, I love it. I love it. So good.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah,
Um.
yeah, like old Japanese woodblock prints,
Yeah.
right? I think
Yeah.
is like often that sort of
Yeah.
ethos. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
I vibe with
Yeah.
that sort of visual, obviously. Yeah,
Okay, Tim. We have talked for around the 45 minutes, believe it or
yeah,
not,
we've
give or
gone on.
take. Yeah. So I guess we'll think about wrapping it up now. Do you have any last minute words for anyone who might be watching this on YouTube? If they're a creator themselves, if they're looking to start drawing as a career, what do you have to say to even the Star Atlas community?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're interested in drawing stuff like that, again, I think the just about doing it, right? It's really cliche,
Get started.
but I think, yeah, it's the same with a lot of these sort of creative endeavors. You just have to find a way. Like I'm all about building it into your ritual, right? Like that's what I'm sort of. I think it's like with a lot of creative endeavors, a lot of things that we do, hack those things by making it part of your ritual, just part of the thing that you do. And that's kind of how I guess sort of managed to bumble my way into being here and how to sort of draw this comic. It's just kind of I just kind of liked doing it and I got
Yeah.
into the habit of doing it. So I think like that's the number one thing. I think that takes care of most of the issues that people have. Obviously, it's a big challenge, but I think that's the first sort of stage. But yeah, I mean, if people are out there, I'm just like, yeah, like read the comic and let me know what you think. I'm super super excited to get feedback and hear what people are thinking about, and if you read it or liked it, didn't like it. Again, it doesn't you don't have to like you don't have to think of some amazing critique to tell me exactly what's wrong with it. Totally happy to just say, yeah, that was cool. You know what I mean? That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't have to be some profound
Profound like
thought
idea,
that you
or
have.
yeah.
If you just think, yeah, that was cool, then
Good.
awesome, right?
Awesome. I did
That's
my
kind of
job.
what these things are for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
where can people reach you? I'm gonna have your ArtStation website down below, your normal website down below as well, and your YouTube as well. The Drawing Codex and Ancient Drawing Wisdom. Where else can people reach you?
Yeah. I think that's about it. I mean, you'll get through to me on one of those
One of
sort
those
of
mediums.
mediums. Again, like I am on Twitter, but I was not on it. But it seems like a lot of probably the people in the community are on Twitter, are
Yeah,
on
we are.
Discord. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm not really in the Discords at the moment, but maybe I'll try and sort of jump on or figure out how that works. But yeah, it's basically you can totally hit me up on Twitter or whatever, or tag me, or you got thoughts, or totally fine. Yeah, but yeah, check out my art station. Is probably a good way to kind of see the other art that I've done.
Yep.
And yeah, if you're interested in drawing or other random, if you're interested in me ranting philosophically about stuff at length, that's pretty much what the drawing codex is about. It's just 100% drawing and nothing else.
Great drawings for an hour and 2 hours sometimes. I've watched one of your videos and I was like, oh, maybe I should try. But then I think, no, I'm not an artist at all. Maybe I should take your advice and just start, right? I should just start doing it.
Start.
Yeah.
Well, it will suck when you first start, which I think is the thing. And that's the same with YouTube, right? So from a creative standpoint, it's very interesting for me because I'm in a space where I'm teaching people to draw, right? But I've been drawing for so long, but it's not easy for me, but it's kind of easy for me, right? I'm not like the best at it, but I'm kind of good at it. And I think that can be a real challenge when you're trying to educate people or try and figure out how to communicate with them, because you can't relate to that struggle. But the struggle is real, So it was interesting, when I just sort of jumped on YouTube and I'm doing this, and I'm like, as I'm sure you've experienced, right? That the first bit of doing any creative endeavor or anything is like
hard.
Just pure sucktown.
Yep.
It's not fun, right?
Yep.
But
you get into your flow, views, comments. Hey, that was really good, and then you just get into it, and then you just keep going.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing. It always sucks in the beginning to do anything creative, and that's kind of part of the process, I guess. But yeah, I've sort of experienced that as well, and I'm like, yeah, it really sucks when you're doing something like no one is paying any attention to it or whatever, or you try and do it and it doesn't turn out well. So yeah, if anyone's trying drawing and you're like, oh, that seems easy or whatever, yeah, it will suck to begin, but
keep going at it.
Just got to get in the habit of doing it.
Yeah,
solves most problems.
Well said, man. Well said. We'll leave it there for now. If you've been watching, thank you very much, guys, for the Star Atlas coming to listen to Tim McBurney. Tim, thank you very much for your time coming on, mate.
No worries. No, this has been good. Thanks for the chat. I appreciate it. Hopefully I haven't spoiled anything that I shouldn't have spoiled, but hopefully I've given you enough
good idea,
sort of insider information to get you excited about the comic. And yeah, just a little bit about what the process is like. But yeah, super excited to be working on this, super excited to be working, with the other people on the team. Yeah, it's really, really fun so far. So
all right. And we look forward to the first episode and the consequent episodes to follow after that. So that's it for now, guys. Thank you very much. Make sure you check out his ArtStation down below. All the links are there. This has been MetaVerse Explorer and Tim McBurney. We're going to sign off now. We'll chat to you maybe after the first kind of comic has launched, so that we can gauge the sentiment, see how it went, All right. That's it for now. Ciao.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Bye.